Hey guys, this is your High Fist here with another juicy video. As always, I know it's been a while, but hey, how can you ever miss me if I never go away, right? So, with that said, let's get it started. Thank you, as always, to Steven Erikson for commenting on and sharing my last video. You guys should check out the comment that he left behind. He was just breathing fire, and I think the comment has more likes than the video itself, so go check it out. This video is responding to Niflrog's tag on the greatest uh, Malazan scenes, which is a result of Erikson's fantastic interview with Madness. So, shout out to both Niflrog and Madness. I've jotted down a few points because I'm focusing on one scene today. So, let's see how this goes, right? The scene that I'd like to deconstruct today isn't just my favorite in the series. It's probably my favorite scene in sort of any book. I think it's the perfect scene. There are so many great lines in this scene. If we were to sort of compare the reading experience to music, which I had before, this is my favorite Erikson song, if that makes sense, right? So, my favorite scene is the meeting between Quick Ben and Bauchelain in Memories of Ice. Yes, guys, it has no bearing on the plot, it has no emotional punch, there is no heroic sacrifice, there is no call to compassion and empathy, there is no sort of life lesson to be learned, there's none of that. It's just a really, really cool scene, right? And it is a perfect example of how two things can be merged. Number one, dark humor. I think humor in general is the most difficult genre in fiction to write. Look, epic battles are hard to write, grand tragedies are hard to write, romances are hard to write, they're all hard to write. But I think the most sort of difficult art to conquer as a writer is humor, just my opinion, right? And out of that, sort of morbid humor in particular takes so much creativity and skill that nobody seems to do it well, right? And yet, here's Erikson, the guy who wrote The Chain of Dogs and The Hobbling and The Snake. Here is this guy doing it so effortlessly. So, morbid humor, dark humor is number one. Number two, this the concept of a confrontation between two really intelligent and competent individuals, right? We've seen this done a million times in fiction, right? But we've never really seen it done better than it is here. So it's almost like a scene where James Bond meets the villain of the film or the book, or Sherlock Holmes and Moriarty meeting, right? Particularly in the kind of visual interpretations of Sherlock Holmes, right? Like the BBC show and the Guy Ritchie movies and all that. When the two of them meet, it's always fire. It's the clash of these two great minds. And even though I've often said that Malazan is sort of adult fiction as opposed to escapist fiction, that doesn't mean Erikson can't do fun. And this is an extremely fun and cool scene, right? So you will not find talking about cool, you will not find two cooler examples of the wizard trope than Quick Ben and Bauchelain in general. As many of you would know by now, these are my two favorite characters in the entire series. They're so sort of, they're so full of mystery, they're so unflappable under pressure, they're powerful, but at the same time, their power has nothing to do with what makes them interesting characters. It's much more about their dialogue, the way they talk, the way they act, and things like that. Both Bauchelain and Quick Ben are characters who sort of dismantle the whole intelligent wizard stereotype, but at the same time, they're also great examples of that stereotype, right? So let's get to the scene itself. The scene starts with Quick Ben making his way to the estate where the two necromancers now live in Capustan, right? So the estate itself is a hilarious canvas for the story to play out because the entire city has been taken over by this unstoppable army, right? And sort of this army is so unstoppable that Anamander Rake, Caledon Brood, Hood, Calor, Silver Fox, Whiskey Jack, Lady Envy, Kurul, right, Krupp, the Barghast, the Segule, the Imas, right? All of these big heavy hitters team up to take on this unstoppable army. And here are Bauchelain and Corbie in the midst of the city that's been completely butchered and conquered by this evil army. They are here in this estate just doing their own thing and they're just chilling, right? Even the sort of tennis cowrie, the tennis cowrie have managed to climb into the estate and charge it a couple of times, but then the necromancers always kind of blast them back with their sorcery. And even the tennis cowrie who eat other people and who do all kinds of depraved things flee in terror at the sorcery of Bauchelain and Corbie, right? And to add insult to the injury, they've also, the two necromancers have also kind of raised the dead soldiers to serve as guards in the estate. So that's the setting, right, where all this happens. Quick Ben has salamanders with him, who provides him with some relief against the poisoned warrens, because at this point in the story, the crippled god has poisoned the warrens. Only a handful of people can use magic, right? And they quickly move past the guards who can't see them because he's moving through Hood's warren, right? So Quick Ben moves through Hood's warren so that the guards of the estate, the undead guards, can't see them. And they encounter a Syrinth demon, which is this huge thing that's guarding the estate, right? In a lesser story, in the hands of a lesser writer, here's where the author would have shown us what a badass the sort of protagonist mage is, right? By kind of just blasting the demon with the waves of sorcery. But this is Quick Ben. And as we all know, Quick Ben's most alluring feature is not his power, right? It's his brain. And at this point, Quick Ben in the series is still using cunning and quick thinking to defeat his opponents. Even though he remains one of my favorite characters later on in the book as well, he kind of resorts to a lot of brute force sorcery in the later books. Whereas in the earlier books like Memories of Ice, he's just all cunning and versatility rather than just blasting enemies with waves of sorcery, right? So the Syrinth demon charges him, and he kind of opens up a warren into Aral Gamelin and jumps back into that, and the demon follows him. And as the demon follows, it gets stopped because it's collared and it's chained back to whatever summoning circle Bauchelain has used in the estate, right? So Quick Ben tells the demon, look, I can break that chain and I can free you. You are home now. This is Aral Gamelin, right? You can go back and find your loved ones. I will be on my way. So he carefully makes his way to the demon, and he sees that there are sigils on its collar that are binding the demon, right? And that the script is a really, really old one. And then we start seeing a bit of that Quick Ben genius. Here's what he says, and I quote, "The key to breaking this chain lies in unraveling a single thread. The challenge is in finding the right one." So you've just got to find the right thing to unravel, and you can kind of just bring that entire binding spell down like a house of cards. He then looks at it closer and he says, "Curious, this is chorelry script, high chorelry, which hasn't been used in centuries. Well, easy enough then." So he rubs one glyph off the sigil and says, "Thus changing its meaning." And he yanks on the chain, right? And the chain just comes free. This one line is so important because in this one line, Erikson really drives in just how formidable both Bauchelain and Quick Ben are. It seems like a simple thing to do, but it's not. Let me explain, right? And let me explain why it's important for both of them to look good. So, in professional wrestling, there's a term called booking, right? You need to book the characters properly when they fight in the ring. You need to control their fate properly. So, if you have, let's say, Hulk Hogan versus the Ultimate Warrior or whatever, right? Stone Cold Steve Austin versus The Rock, it doesn't matter. The match has to play out in a way where even though there will be a winner and a loser in the end, both guys need to come out looking strong because you need both guys to continue to generate interest among the fans even after the confrontation, right? You can't just turn one guy into a badass and make the other guy look like a chump. And this principle applies to movies, television, anime, comic books, Dungeons and Dragons, whatever. The art of making two formidable characters clash and to have them both look equally good is not an easy task. And yet, Erikson does it here so, once again, effortlessly, right? Bauchelain looks strong because this demon that is bound is trapped with this arcane script that has not been used in centuries. So he's got to be super knowledgeable and a super powerful summoner, right? And Quick Ben looks strong as well because not only is he familiar with this ancient language that hasn't been used in centuries, he's proficient enough to wipe out a single glyph and change the entire meaning of the sequence, which frees the demon. So they both look really strong. Anyway, the demon still tries to bite a Quick Ben, but he jumps back just in time, and he then sort of escapes the demon, right? He then enters the path of stone to sort of get into the mansion by traveling within the walls, not through the walls, within the walls, because the path of stone lets you travel inside stone, right? And now that our protagonist has been established, it's kind of time to showcase our antagonist, right? Because to me, even though Quick Ben will eventually emerge as the winner of this encounter, my boy Bauchelain still manages to steal the show. Bauchelain just has to open his mouth and say stuff, and he can steal the show, right? That's how great the character is. So as Quick Ben navigates to where they are, he can hear Emanciper, Reese, and Bauchelain speaking, right? And Bauchelain is kind of just reclined on a divan. He's just casually reading a book. He doesn't really care, and he's like, Emanciper, please return those guards to those original positions, right? Because the guards would have seen Quick Ben come out of Adaephon, but before they could kind of find him, Quick Ben disappears again by entering Hood's Warren. So the guards are all just frozen there, looking inwards at the mansion rather than outwards, as guards should, right? So Bauchelain doesn't really care that there's an intruder who's freed his demon and all that. He's like, listen, can you just go reposition those guards, right? Reese is really worried. Reese is like, look, we have an intruder. You need to do something about this. But Bauchelain once again says, listen, clearly the intruder sort of had no other choice but to dismiss my demon, right? Because my demon is trained to attack anyone who enters. And even then, it couldn't have been that easy. So Erikson does this really cool parallel where both Quick Ben and Bauchelain have the sidekicks who are really worried, and that's contrasted with their own cool confidence. Quick Ben has Salamanders who keep saying, you're crazy for doing this, right? Why are you doing this? And Bauchelain has Reese saying, you need to do something about the intruder. How can you be so relaxed about this? And even though they never really come out and say it, Erikson has clearly established that both these guys who know nothing about each other, right, already have an immense amount of respect for each other. All Quick Ben knows is that this guy is a formidable summoner, and all Bauchelain knows is that this guy is strong enough to sort of break through his defenses. They don't even know each other's names yet, but they are already sort of intrigued by each other. And that kind of mutual intrigue and sort of both of them being these cool magician characters is what makes the dynamic so cool. So Quick Ben finally comes out of the wall, right? So he just materializes through the wall, and Bauchelain doesn't even remove his eyes from the book. He just continues reading, and as Quick Ben comes, he doesn't even acknowledge him, and he just says, some wine, Emanciper, for me and my guest, and just keeps reading. Reese then turns around, and Reese sees Quick Ben there, and he's like, whoa, what the fuck, where did this guy come from? And Bauchelain says, the walls have ears, eyes, and all the rest. Be on with your task, Emanciper. So there's this great scene then when their eyes lock. Quick Ben's and Bauchelain's eyes lock. And Quick Ben internally says, now that's a lizard's regard. Well, I've never quailed from the like before, so why should I now? The moment where they locked eyes, Quick Ben is essentially acknowledging that even for him, Bauchelain's gaze is pretty unsettling, right? I thought that was interesting. And Quick Ben says, look, I've dealt with guys like this in the past, right? And I've never sort of backed down from them before. So why should I now? I've never been squeamish about dealing with people like that before. So why should I not? Once again, both of them looking really strong. So Bauchelain then suggests wine, as I just said, right? And Quick Ben says wine would be wonderful. And Bauchelain says something flowery, which sets up a great joke later. So Reese goes down to get the wine. Quick Ben and Bauchelain sort of introduce themselves, and this is where we get the first great back and forth between the two. When Quick Ben introduces himself, Bauchelain says the name Quick Ben is aptly chosen because he would have had to act and think quickly to evade that demon. He kind of reveals, because when you think about it, Quick Ben frees the demon, but the demon attacks him anyway, right? So Bauchelain reveals that the Sirinth attacking Quick Ben was a part of the Geash, right? That it was specifically designed to make the demon attack whoever frees it. Quick Ben says that's clever, but I assume that the condition doesn't apply to you, the summoner. And Bauchelain, in his own sort of epic, nonchalant way, says nope. And Quick Ben's like, not even you, right? You put in a Geash where it would attack even you if you free your demon. And Bauchelain just says, I never free my demons. And he goes on further, and there's another one of those things that makes Bauchelain such a great character. He has this rock solid internal logic that has no place for sentimental questions. He's not cruel, he's heartless, right? He would take no pleasure in killing a person, but at the same time, he wouldn't bat an eyelid in terms of committing genocide, right? Quick Ben says poor demons, right? When he hears Bauchelain saying he never frees his demons, he's being sarcastic, right? But Quick Ben does have a moral code, albeit a flimsy one. There are many moments in the series where we see him doing the good thing, right? Bauchelain, on the other hand, exists outside of that. I've done a video on the Folklore Assail before. Even the Folklore Assail, they have a different morality from us, but they have a morality nonetheless, right? Morality is not absent from their worldview. Whereas with Bauchelain, morality is sort of absent from his worldview. That is not a part of his calculations. It's all about how you phrase things and how you do things. So when Quick Ben says poor demons, Bauchelain says, I hold no sympathy for mere tools. Do you weep for your dagger when it breaks in someone's back? And Quick Ben, without losing a beat, says, that depends on whether it killed the bastard or just made him mad. And Bauchelain says, but then you weep for yourself. And Quick Ben just says, listen, I was just joking, right? And Bauchelain raises a single eyebrow in response, but says nothing. And this is the kind of back and forth that makes the scene so great. It sort of knows how, even though he's being serious, Bauchelain's being serious, and Quick Ben is being sarcastic in the scene, Bauchelain doesn't get phased at all, right? Contrast that with the Reaper's Gale confrontation between Tehol and Karos Invictat, where Karos is completely flustered by Tehol's humor. If you think about it, Karos Invictat is a genius, but he's constantly trying to prove that he's a genius, and he tries to walk around with this pompous air of being this mastermind. But to Bauchelain, it just comes naturally. Bauchelain isn't cool because he's trying to be. He's cool because he's just cool. There are other similarities between or contrast between a villain like Karos Invictat and a quote-unquote villain antagonist like Bauchelain, right? Karos Invictat always wears crimson and Bauchelain always wears black. And there's even this great scene in the early parts of Memories of Ice where Grunter looks at Bauchelain's all black clothing and he tells Reese that black was the fashionable color in Darujistan last year, right? That it's out of fashion now. He says black was last year's shade. And Emanciper Reese just says black is Bauchelain's eternal shade, sir, right? I'm sorry, guys. The character's just too awesome for me to handle sometimes, right? Where I love Bauchelain quotes. That is, I think, one of the best parts of Erikson's entire canon of work for me personally, right? So anyway, Bauchelain isn't faced by Quick Ben's sarcasm at all. And then Reese arrives with the wine, right? And he's just carrying 2 glasses. And Bauchelain says, am I so unegalitarian, Emanciper? Right? And asks him to get a glass. So when Reese is like, oh, I had a swig downstairs, master, just to check if it was flowery, right? Because he had asked for something flowery. And Bauchelain says, okay, so was it? And then they realize that Reese has no idea what flowery means. And Bauchelain says flowery is the opposite of woody. And of course, it's absurd because there's no way Reese would know what woody was either, right? And Bauchelain then tries to educate Reese on these finer matters. He says, flowery is sweet, like narcissus or skull crown. And immediately, Quick Ben interrupts, going, whoa, 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 those are poisonous flowers, right? To which Bauchelain says, and I quote, but pretty and sweet in appearance, yes? I doubt any of us are in the habit of eating flowers. Thus, an analogy, I sought visual cues for dear Emanciper. So he's basically saying, look, I know those flowers are poisonous, but they look sweet. And since none of us have an appetite for flowers, I was just teaching this guy with visual examples, right? That's such a great line. And not only is it hilarious, but once again, it establishes that both Bauchelain and Quick Ben are masters of natural poisons, right? Because they're both familiar with these poisonous flowers. And then we come to the sort of real black humor part. After this explanation, Bauchelain asks, so was it flowery, right? As I said, the wine, was it flowery? And Reese just goes, it was kind of thick like iron, right? Which obviously makes no sense. So Bauchelain smells it and says, you idiot, this is blood from Corbie Broach's collection. Not that row, the one opposite, right? I have no idea what's funnier. The way that during this entire lecture on flowery and woody, that it was blood all along, the wine was blood all along, or the fact that Reese had already taken a swig of the blood thinking it was high-class wine, or the fact that these guys keep their blood collection and their wine collection on parallel rows, right? He's like, oh, not that one, the row opposite, right? Reese understandably freaks out and it's like, what the fuck? Blood? Whose blood? And Bauchelain's like, does it matter whose blood it is? And Reese starts reeling and he wants to puke and he's shaking. And Quick Ben says to him, I think it does matter, right? So Bauchelain says, okay, fine. And he sort of smells it again. And he says, I think it's virgin's blood. And Quick Ben says, how do you know? And Bauchelain says, well, it's woody, right? Which is obviously a pun on the whole virgin deflowered thing, right? Woody is the opposite of flowery. It's just intelligent and dark humor at its finest, and for some reason, it really resonates with me as a reader, right? So Reese finally goes down and gets a proper bottle of wine for the two of them to drink. Quick Ben is initially suspicious when he sips the wine, but he relaxes when he realizes that it's not poisoned. And Bauchelain even kind of half smiles, right? He's like, yeah, you think it's poison, but I wouldn't resort to something so cheap and easy, right? So Quick Ben then says, because Bauchelain's a demon summoner, so Quick Ben says, demonic summoning, it's the rarest and most difficult discipline among the necromantic arts. And Bauchelain just responds with a modest shrug, right? Bauchelain, as I've said many times already, is cool without trying to be cool. And even Quick Ben is acknowledging that what he does is the hardest of all the necromantic arts to master, right? I hope I can have a scene like that with some kind of a booktuber someday, right? Where some booktubers like, you sort of review books as well. Which sort of series does your channel cover? And I would be like the Malazan Book of the Fallen. And the booktuber would be like, wow, the sort of the rarest and most difficult discipline among the booktubing arts. And I would just kind of modestly shrug like Bauchelain. I know that's unlikely to ever happen, but listen, a guy can dream, right? So they then have a short and interesting sort of conversation on the Warren of Death, because Bauchelain does use Hood's Warren, and sort of, even though he's a summoner, right? He's technically not a necromancer in the sense that Corbie Broach is. He's a demonic summoner. And Quick Ben asks him, why do you think the summoning of demons is death aspected? And Bauchelain just casually replies, this is what he says, because it's all about the assertion of total control over a life. The threat of annihilation is inherently death aspected. Once again, just a great line, because summoning as a power is a huge cliche in the fantasy genre, right? But this idea that summoning at its core is a tyrannical act of exerting total control over a life force is very rarely explored. In many ways, summoning is as immoral, if not more immoral, than what Cotillion did to Saudi or what the Jagut tyrants did to the Aimas by taking control of their minds. And the fact that Quick Ben even asks him that question shows how much regard Quick Ben has for Bauchelain's knowledge and intellect. We don't really see Quick Ben asking another mage for his or her opinion on such a deep magical topic before or after in the series, right? In fact, even though we see Quick Ben interact with other mages in the series like Tatasale and Taishnen, we've never seen him offer so much courtesy and respect where he's just so clearly intrigued by the guy. So they finally talk about the triple god, and Quick Ben explains that all the Warrens are poisoned and that these two should consider retaliation against the triple god, although he doesn't want their help, right? He's like, even if you offered your help, I wouldn't take it. I don't want your help. You guys do your own thing, I will do my own thing. And he says that he will stop the triple god at any rate. And since the scene for a while has had the spotlight on Bauchelain, it's time to start giving Quick Ben all the badass lines now, right? Structurally as well. So when Ben says, I refuse your help and sort of I will defeat the triple god by myself if I have to, Bauchelain says, interesting. So is your power one to rival the gods then? And Quick Ben says, I don't rival the gods, but I sometimes beat them at their own game. And what a line that encapsulates what Quick Ben is, right? What makes Quick Ben so powerful. It's not that he rivals the gods in terms of power, but he can use his powers to outwit the gods, which is what makes him so compelling. And like us, when Quick Ben says that, Bauchelain is like, wow, right? This Quick Ben guy is awesome. And even he's like, I don't get entertained very easily, but this evening you did really provide me with a lot of good entertainment. And the scene finally starts to come to a close. And he's like, but alas, my companion Cobalt Brooch wants to kill you. And Quick Ben once again isn't even fazed. He just says, can't please everyone, right? He's not bothered by it. Cobalt Brooch lands in front of him in the crow form. And just as he starts to assemble into the human one, Quick Ben casually just blasts him with the 6 warrens through the fireplace, right? And Jess says, I don't treat hecklers very well. In a weird way, it's almost like a Western, right? Where a threat shows up and the gunslinger sort of just takes out his gun. He's too quick for him, just takes out his gun and just shoots the guy. It was almost reminiscent of that. It was very cinematic in that sense. And as Ben blasts Cobalt Brooch through the wall, Bauchelain is not phased as well, right? Notice how cool Bauchelain is. So as Quick Ben just blasts Cobalt Brooch through, Bauchelain just says more wine and pours Quick Ben some wine. So and he's like, wow, you're an artist, right? I've never seen warrens tied together that intricately before. And they sort of continue having their casual but tense conversation under the surface as the fire and smoke start spreading throughout the house. They both seem to know that the final showdown between the two of them is coming, but neither kind of makes a big deal about it because they're still so interested in getting to know more about each other. They're still having their chat and sipping some wine, and Quick Ben is like, oh, I wouldn't kill Cobalt Brooch because I'm your guest and I can't be rude, when Bauchelain asks him if Cobalt Brooch will survive. And Bauchelain then comments that the sorcery Ben just used doesn't have any hint of poison in it, right? Because we know that Talamandus is protecting Quick Ben from the poison, but Bauchelain doesn't know that. So they go back and forth like that, and Bauchelain finally says, listen, curiosity is a big weakness of mine, right? So please just answer my questions so that I don't have to sort of force my power on you. And Quick Ben's like, sorry, I can't let you do that. And Bauchelain says, listen, you're really impressive and all that, right? You're really, really powerful. But you shouldn't have used all 6 warrens against Cobalt Brooch, right? You should have saved at least half of what you're capable of. And that gives us the sort of last great line of this entire scene when Bauchelain says you should have sort of at least held on to half of what you were capable of. Quick Ben says, oh, Bauchelain, I did. And blasts Bauchelain with the other 6 warrens as well, right? When Bauchelain's just unsuspecting and getting up. So with the second attack, Bauchelain gets blasted back as well, and the entire mansion is on fire now. and Quick Ben just walks away. Reese is like, what are you doing? Kill them both, right? Kill them. Why do none of you people sort of ever kill them, right? Because he sort of is the one who has to deal with the consequences, right? Of packing the bags, running away, scrubbing this, burying that. Poor Reese is the manservant who has to kind of be stuck with all of that while the two of them just have fun. So Quick Ben just rolls his eyes and keeps walking away. Reese does save them, right? Reese pulls both Bauchelain and Corbie Brooch off the fire, and he's like, Master, I pulled you out and I've kind of doused the fire, blah, blah, blah. I couldn't save the wardrobe. And Bauchelain's just like, perhaps we sort of, we suffer from some chronic flaw, right? Because they keep underestimating their enemies, their adversaries, and this was the kind of clearest example of that. And Quick Ben's already sort of far away by then, because he doesn't want to be around when the undead guards get up, because now he really is spent up, according to himself, right? And he sort of just leaves. So that was my favorite scene, guys. I know it was not a very heavy scene, right? But if you watch my videos before, you probably know the types of scenes that I enjoy, right? The insect puzzle with the Tehol and Kara's Invictad, the sort of folklore sale scene where Brother Everence quotes Gothos' folly, the scene in Samadev's lab where Kasa's just fumbling around, right? And a simple setting like that being used to contrast civilization and barbarism. It's the scenes like that which are sort of both meaningful and also have an underlying current of humor that I like, right? I wish I could tell you that my favorite scene was the Maib introspecting on motherhood, or Cotillion being humanized, or Talk the Younger's sacrifice, or something really powerful and emotional like that. And after I saw Niflrog's video, I was really tempted to go down that path, because if you watch it, and if you haven't, you should, right? I'll just put a link up to that as well. He's touching on things like narrative layers and foreshadowing and kind of emotional moments and things like that. And I think even Erikson said that he had tears in his eyes, right, as he was watching that video, especially with Niflrog's last pick, right? And Erikson was like, I've been waiting for 10 years for someone to say this, right? So with all that, I was kind of tempted to go down that path and kind of start focusing on what I think critically would be the most important scenes or best scenes, as opposed to my favorite scene. But ultimately, my inner voice just kept saying, right, what the fuck are you doing, right? You know what your favorite is. You know which your favorite scene is that you've read many, many times. So I said, you know what? I'm just going to be honest. I'm just going to go with that. So that's it, guys, right? I hope to see you guys sometime soon. Take care. Thank you, and see you next time.